One of the biggest lies with music production is that you need more to make something good. More synths, more plugins, more sound effects, the list goes on. But in reality, some of the most hard-hitting and effective house tracks are stripped back to the fundamentals and core elements. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at how the pros do minimalism and how you can do it too within your own tracks. We're going to be deep diving into the sound of GOLFOS, which is the love child of Cruz and PAWSA. Some of their releases are stripped back to the bare bones kick, clap, hi-hats, and a good bass line. So let's dive into Ableton and level up our music today. Sorry to interrupt this video so early on, but I have a massive favor to ask. I'm trying to build out Serotonin Studio to be the best minimal deep tech music education platform and community for producers just like you. So to do that, I'm going to need your help. If you could fill out the Google survey in the first link below, it would mean the absolute world to me. It'll only take about 5 minutes of your time, and there's some free gifts in there, such as a free sample pack and a whole 3 months membership for Serotonin Studio. So it's going to be worth your time. Anyways, I'll leave you to watch the rest of this video. So the track we're going to be analysing today is GOLFOS Whole 9 Birdie Mix. This is just one of my favourite house tracks, period. It always blows my mind how simple it is, but how effective it is at the same time. So let me just play a little bit out for you so you get a good idea of the track and what we're working with. Still, all these years later, it blows my mind how effective this track is. And trust me, if you haven't played this one out in a club, it's well worth playing out in your sets. So before we start working our way through this and trying to recreate something our own, let's just talk about what makes minimalism effective. So firstly, because we've taken so much stuff out of a mix and we've just taken it down to the fundamentals, we have a lot of space. So this does two key things. So number one is the tension and release. So by having less elements in there, it actually naturally brings more tension to the track. Because there's less stuff going on, the listener is anticipating that next thing, which helps build the tension. So sometimes it's not about adding more risers to build the tension or more send effects. It's actually about doing less and thinking it from the listener's point of view of them listening to the track and anticipating when the bass is going to drop or when the vocal is going to come in. At the same time, from the listener's point of view, the space in the mix allows the listener to kind of imagine their own grooves in the track, especially as producers. I'm sure we can all relate to this, where we listen to tracks and we can hear little rhythms and things bounce off of each other. And sometimes that is great for just the average listener. I'm sure we can all think of a film with a very open-ended ending, and then that spans our imagination to go crazy and think of all the alternatives. And music can be kind of similar if you keep it as simple as possible, because you're not telling a such restricted narrative because there's that much more space in the mix. Now, less on the artsy side, more on the production side. So what is actually going on in this track? So let's use our referencing skills that we've worked on in the Track from Scratch reference series to actually understand what individual elements are going on. So we're going to play out a little bit of a track again, and I'm just going to start taking notes on what's playing and what's not playing.
And work it out now.
now we've taken our notes and we have a better understanding of the core elements that are actually in the track, we can now just go about trying to recreate it. As I've touched on before in previous videos, if you're referencing, make sure you always delete it from your project. It's because having the reference track in there actually opens yourself up to comparison, which really can be a detrimental effect for when you're trying to get into some kind of creative flow state. Because before you know it, you'll be flicking back to the reference track, comparing it, and then trying to copy. You're not actually getting into your own creative zone. But at least with the markers, we know kind of the road and direction we want to go down, but we're not stuck there. So with that being said, let's start with building out the drums. This is going to be dead simple because all we really need is some decent kick, some clap and snare with a few different layers for variety, and a really basic hi-hat. So let's find a nice kick to work with. And we're looking for something with a bit more of a top end kind of old school feeling to it. Now, it is really important to note when we are working with these minimalistic approach, we need to be even more diligent to the samples that we're selecting. Because if we start choosing average or below average samples, it's really going to be noticeable in a mix that has this much space. So we need to make sure that it's the best possible kick drum we can find for this track, because nothing's going to be hiding it. And just like in the reference, every now and again it has kind of a groove or little skip kick. So that's exactly what I'm going to put in. And I'm going to put it on that one. And I'm going to turn down this velocity, and I'm going to adjust the swing as well of this one. So I'm going to shorten it and then just bring it off slightly. And sometimes what's cool is to actually swap out the kick in the drum rack. So maybe go for something like that, so it gives a bit more of a percussive kind of tom vibe. That one's cool, I really like that. And I'm going to pick this one up and I'm going to put it on this one here, just for a bit of variation. You can see exactly what I mean. It's way more like percussive and feels more like a tom, but it sits perfectly with the kicks. And that's all we need. So we're going to delete that and we will forget about that for the moment. And we'll move on to our drums. So let's add in some kind of nice clap. And we're looking for something quite crisp, almost like verging on a snare, like the reference track, but still has that old school kind of sound to it. You see, I'm being super careful with the samples I'm picking. I already scanned through probably a few decent claps that I could have used, but I'm just waiting to find that perfect one. And I would say that there's no perfect ones in there that are suiting the vibe. So I'm going to move this across and see if we can find something in a different drum rack. Okay, I like this one because it's got that top end, almost white noise on it. So I'm going to leave that one. And now we're going to pick up our MIDI from this one. And we're going to copy it over to the snares to find a snare to layer with it.
Many hours later.
Okay, so after some digging around, I then come across this snare and this one. So I like the more mid-range from this one, and then all together, that's sounding like this. Sounds great, very raw and very authentic for what we're going for. Now, it did take me quite a while to find these samples and make sure they all work together, but I can always guarantee the end result is going to pay off. Now, what I am going to do is going to find a nicer layer for the snare and clap groove just every now and again. So let's duplicate this off and let's go 4 bars and go for something like that. simple, and I like it. That's kind of the vibe what we're going for. But let's maybe find a more noticeable one for the 8-bar. So I think this one sounds good. So let's just test what it actually sounds like in the groove. Yep, that works. So let's bring down the velocity and add some nice reverb to it. And even that reverb's a bit too kind of bright, almost a bit of a happy reverb. So let's try and find some drum reverb that we can manipulate and make it sound really old school. Fat Drum Studio. Let's give that one a go. So put that one on there. Got that old school sound to it, but the dry wet is way too high. Let's dial that back. Yeah, that sounds much more in line. Let's go back into the clip and drag this one out all the way back to start. So now we've got our kick and our clap and a snare groove in there. So then next up would be some hi-hats. So we're going to look for something nice and short and snappy. Has quite a lot of top end in it, because if you think of all the elements we've added so far, kick, more mid and obviously low dominant, snare and claps, they're very mid dominant. So we want a hi-hat really to occupy that high end space. So it's really got to be a good one. So let's use our drum racks from the templates to use this to get it sounding right. I like that one, and I'm going to go against the code of the reference track, and I'm going to put a few layers on top of it. Who knows, maybe the reference track has a few closed hi-hats layer on top of it, but because they're playing at exactly the same time, we can't tell. Yeah, that's working for me. So let's go and add a very subtle kind of shuffle hat, which I picked up on in the reference, and it just plays every now and again. It's very, very quiet in the groove, and it played about once every 4 bars. So let's make this 4 bars, play it, and then when we can hear a good little skip, we'll add a hi-hat in. Something like that. That's working for me. I still feel like that snare is going to need a bit of shaping up, but let's just progress through, seeing as we're in a good groove and a good flow at the minute, and we can do some tidying up before we actually jump into the arrangement. We need some kind of modular percussion sound. It was quite hard to figure out what that sound was within the track, but it just played every now and again. I think something like this could actually work. So let's give it a go. Let's put it on to the mod perk channel. I really like that as it is. What this has reminded me is that we could do with some kind of vinyl texture. So what I'm going to do is grab RC20 and just use the vinyl noise in there. We can put it onto this tom channel, let's call it. That little bit of reverb just created a bit more atmosphere, which sounds really good. So let's turn that one down. Let's go back to seeing if we can make that knock sound. So let's try the obvious actually. Let's go and type in knock. That could actually work being a kick. So let's insert a MIDI, put this one onto the channel, duplicate, and find where we want it to hit. That kind of works. I think if we beef that up, distort it, and roll off some of the low end, this is going to work. Let's try it for some distortion. That works. The only thing is we can't really hear this little shuffle hat now, so I might move the location of it. That's working for me. And what we didn't do as well is add in a little ghost snare / groove snare. I know that track like the back of my hand, and I know that at some point it does add a little ghost snare. So we can do that by just duplicating our snare channel and turning these ones off. Those that aren't sure what I mean by a ghost snare, by anything referring as like a ghost hit or ghost snare in this case, I'm just referring to a sound that just plays every now and again, which is hardly audible, but makes quite a noticeable difference to the groove. So there's a good bit of space there. Not the right snare, but it worked. And I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to have it happen once there, and then get rid of that one, and on this side I'm going to move it to there. So the bass line was this pretty much just rolling sub. It just sounded like low end noise. There was really no melody to it or anything like that, so it should be pretty easy to recreate. So I'm going to go and grab some sub bass, and I might try using this one, which is James Dexter's plugin. I've really been enjoying these, and I'm going to be doing a whole video on all of his plugins now that he's got a good series of them. So I really think they are worth your investment. So now let's go in and create some kind of rolling melody. It's not really a melody, is it? Who are we kidding? Some kind of rolling bass groove. And I'm going to go Thurigan to create that darker vibe. And I'm going to go F because I like it. Too high for vibe we're going for. We're going super deep and dark. And I don't really think there's any let off in low end at all in that bass. So we really need to make sure these notes are super long. You can almost use the legato feature, so then that stretches all of them out so they all end when the next one plays. A little gap does sound good. Again, comes back to the whole point of this video. These small minimalistic changes do make a difference. I could definitely hear it going down there. Okay, it kind of works. Obviously, there's a lot of mid-range in this bass. Well, not a lot, but enough to make it sound a bit weird. So let's roll all of that off and just see what it sounds like as a pure sub. And it's really not that bad. So I've just pulled in the reference so we can finish with a comparison, and we can see our next moves for the second part of this video. So let's pull up this one again and just play through a little bit. Okay, so what I'm noticing is the bass line sounds a bit quicker than ours one, which typically means it might have a few more notes. And secondly, it has that more high pitch perk coming through, which we've used with our kick perk. So I think if we find something similar to that, that would help elevate it and obviously find a vocal too. So let's wrap up part 1 of this mini series and head to part 2, where we look at including the iconic vocal sample, tightening up our loop to give it that raw, authentic sound, and doing the most simple arrangement you've ever done. So I'll see you in part 2. Thank you so much for watching this whole video. If you liked the video, then please like, comment, and subscribe. It really does make a difference to the channel and its growth. If you are interested in watching the rest of the series, then go to the survey link below, fill out the whole survey, and you'll get a 3 months membership to Serotonin Studios so you can watch the rest of this mini series. Anyways, have a great day, and I will see you in another video.